I found myself on the computer last week, like most of you probably have, and something came up on the screen that I wasn't expecting. I don't know how it popped up. I didn't ask for it, but anyway, that happens too, I guess. And it was an open letter by a war vet from Iraq. His name was Thomas. That was his last name. What was his first name? Something Thomas. Anyway, he's a war vet. He's dying. And because it's the 10th anniversary of the Iraq War, he wrote an open letter to George Bush and Dick Cheney. And in this letter, he was accusing them of war crimes, accusing them of being responsible for the killing of hundreds and thousands, I guess, at least thousands of innocent soldiers, and thousands upon thousands of innocent people in Iraq, including children. And he said it was all perpetrated on lies, saying that there were weapons of mass destruction, and there wasn't, and there was no reason for this war. And he is now in palliative care, probably soon to die, and he wanted to write this letter to let them know that they are guilty of this. And he was feeling very remorseful, and he was actually feeling very sad. As I read this letter, many thoughts came to me, and one of the first was my feeling of deep sympathy for this man, who is probably going to leave this world very disillusioned, very sad, and without much hope. The other thing that I thought, and it's just my suspicions, that I'm wondering how the people of America will feel when they read this letter. And part says to me, you know, I think some of them are going to feel some tension when they read this letter. Some tension around this whole business of the war 10 years later, which cost trillions of dollars, many lives, wondering about why it had to take place. And when I say the tension, I think maybe there might be some tension with them in terms of, you know, I'm part of this. I'm part of this. Not many of the Americans stood up against George Bush to say, no, this is wrong. We should not be going to war there. However, what the tension becomes is, well, we love our oil, don't we? They fuel our cars, and we don't want to lose those cars, so we better do what we can to make sure we've got the oil. I'm not standing, as much as I would love to get to George Bush and Dick Cheney, they're not my favorite people. However, I'm not going to stand here and blame them and the United States for what they did, because I think Canadians feel the same tension about Afghanistan. I have been quite proud of our country for the kinds of things they've tried to do there, and in some cases they have been successful. They have helped the people rebuild their city, their villages. They have been part of seeing some of the girls get educated, and we have actually really gone in there to help, although we have been fighting as well, and we have lost innocent soldiers in this war, and we've spent lots of money, and we know that we are soon to withdraw sometime next year, and we all live with the tension of what's going to happen once we go. Especially too when the Americans withdraw, I think, another year later. So this whole feeling of the tension has come to in front of me right now, because I was saying to some people earlier today, I really don't like preaching on Palm Sunday. I also don't like preaching at Christmas time. I don't know why. I find it difficult. But I've struggled on Palm Sunday, and I think it's because of the tension that it brings to me. And what is that tension? Well, first of all, let me say, I think everybody feels uncomfortable a little bit on Palm Sunday with this service. I know you do. I can see it because I'm standing up here. And you got books, and you got hymn books, and you got to do this thing, and people are walking around. What are we supposed to be doing with these palms? And the choir always gets frustrated because they don't end up where they want to be, and they don't know when they're supposed to go up there, and the kids are here. Everybody gets upset. And I stand here and smile because I think, yeah, you're feeling the tension, and that's what we should feel. We should feel funny. We should feel tension now because we don't really know what's going on. And the people on Palm Sunday, however it happened, probably felt the same way. because they were hailing him as a king, and we know what happened at the end of the week. Then they shouted fists to have him executed. There's the tension. This tension between right and wrong, good and bad, innocent and guilty. So we need to feel tension. If you're feeling tension, that's good. That's good. If you're feeling tension, the liturgy worked today. I do what I can to make that happen. So Palm Sunday is also the beginning of Holy Week. And so we begin it with a parade of hailing Jesus as the King of the Jews, whatever you want to say, the Son of David, the King of the Kingdom of God. And then we start marching through Holy Week, and we find that once he got to Jerusalem and entered the gates, he went directly to the temple and he started overturning tables and telling them that they were turning this God's house into a den of thieves. You can just see the tension in the chief priests and scribes who are worried about this guy who's got crowds following him, and they're worried about their power. They're worried about the power they're going to lose if all these people rally around this little prophet from Galilee. And so it's the same thing. I'll go with George Bush again. Part of his starting that war was to be vindictive and to show who had the power. You invaded us, I'm going to invade you. And he perpetrated some lie about weapons of mass destruction in order to do that. And boy, it came at a great cost, didn't it? And so this fellow wrote his letter to say to him, this is what you have done, and I want you to know that. So it was the same for Jesus. He went into Jerusalem, he stirred up the people, he stirred up the religious authorities, and eventually stirred up the Roman authorities. And so as we go through Holy Week, we will feel this tension. I want to talk about innocence and guilt. I believe in many ways we have lost our innocence as a people. I believe very strongly that the church has lost its innocence. And one of the things that we have to face as a community of people is that we have lost that innocence. And that we have to look at how we are part of the things that we have done. And so again, Holy Week is the time that we do that. And it's not easy to do. I don't know whether you're like me. I've been in conflict with people at times. Have you been in conflict with people at times? Had an argument with someone who's accused you of something? I suppose none of you have had that experience. The hardest thing to do when you get into a conflict situation with someone else who's standing there and accusing you of doing something that may be in the back of your mind, you're kind of right, but I'm not going to admit it in front of you. And so a lot of us, what do? We just say, well, you're crazy, and we walk away. Because we don't like the tension we're feeling. Rather than stand there and say, okay, I'll take that on. Now let's talk about it. I'm not going to walk away. I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen, and I'm not going to call you a name. I'm going to stand here and say, okay, now let's talk. That's tough. That's really tough. I've often thought that the toughest job in the world would be these people who do the arbitration between unions and the employers, rather. It must be tough because everybody's feeling tension, everybody's pounding the table, and the arbitrator has to say, okay, people, okay, now let's talk about this. It's tough. And the arbitrator usually is the one that finally tries to bring them together. Sometimes they're very successful, sometimes not. So, when we walk through Holy Week and we go through the services each week, each night of the week, we find ourselves coming to Maundy Thursday. Well, look at the tension that was happening there. Jesus is having the Last Supper with his disciples. He knows what's about to happen to him. He knows he's going to be betrayed. He knows he's going to be forsaken. He knows he's going to be handed over to the authorities, and his passion is about to begin. And so what does he do? He washes their feet. Well, you have to come on Maundy Thursday to get the rest of the story. I'm not going to give it all to you now. I want you to come out on Maundy, Thursday. One of the interesting things I find about Maundy, Thursday is I invite people to come up and have their feet washed. Wow, is that ever tough for a lot of people? They don't like to do that. Well, I don't like people touching my feet. I don't want to take off my shoes and socks. Tension. I don't want to come up. I don't want people to see me have my feet washed. Well, we usually get about 6 people. I want the whole congregation to come. I want the whole congregation to feel what it's like to have your feet washed by someone, not from your family. Tension. Oh, tension. You want to believe the disciples felt the tension. Peter didn't want it to be done. And Jesus said, you don't do this, you have no part of me, Peter. A master and a teacher doesn't wash his disciples' feet. Then on Good Friday, we erect a cross here. We sing the Friday cantata, Good Friday cantata, which I want you to come out and hear. And we contemplate the cross. Now, what I want to say about Palm Sunday and Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday is they are not reenactments. We're not reenacting what happened. Because if we were reenacting what happened, we'd have to put somebody up on the cross, wouldn't we? Well, we don't do that. We don't really put somebody up there. But we contemplate the tension between life and death. That's one thing we know we're not going to avoid, is death. And Good Friday is a time for us to contemplate that in our lives. Jesus didn't die for your sins. He died because of the sins in the world at the time. He was put on the cross by authorities who wanted to keep their power, and so they put him there. When I hear people say Jesus died for my sins, it's always bothered me, because I wasn't even around in Jesus' time. He died because of the sins in the world. So, again, this tension, I keep saying tension, I know you're sick of hearing it, but I'm saying it because the tension we feel is the tension between innocence and guilt, courage and fear, facing what we know we need to do in the world, and walking away from that, turning our backs on it. We know what we are about to do. Part of the Maundy, Thursday service, I have people now and again ask me, what's Maundy? What is this Maundy? It's not Monday, Thursday, it's Maundy, Thursday. Well, that's the Latin word for I command you. One of the things he said to them before he went off and got arrested was, I command you to be a servant in the world. You are here to serve, not to be served. That's why I washed your feet. So don't hang around the cross and mourn my death. Go out into the world and do what I did. See, I shouldn't say it again, but I will. I've told people why I have a problem with this cross up here. Because all year I look at Jesus on it, and I want him off it. And I feel that the only time that cross with Jesus on it should be up there Good Friday. After that it comes down. Because we are a resurrection people. We believe in a resurrection. We believe that in that resurrection, even though we do have fear, we do turn away from service, we know because of the resurrection, we are forgiven. So, if you travel through Holy Week and get yourselves through all those services, including the Easter Vigil on Saturday, you will come to the resurrection on Easter Sunday with, I hope, a true feeling of forgiveness and healing. Both things that Jesus commanded his disciples to do. We sometimes look at these disciples and we point our fingers and say, oh, they were a bunch of scared ninnies and they ran off. Well, they didn't run off forever, did they? After the resurrection and they realized what Jesus meant, they went on and produced the gospel. So, this homily does have good news. It does have good news. But you see, anything really worthy of us having always comes at a risk, always comes at a cost. And so, I love the Anglican Church for the liturgy of Holy Week. Because when I was a Baptist, we skipped over that. we kind of looked at Good Friday and then boom, we were right into Easter. We didn't really do what I feel we need to do. And so I'm encouraging you to walk that journey of Holy Week. Feel the tension. And I read a I know I'm rambling because I didn't write this homily out, so I'm rambling. Get over it. I read a meditation to the parish council this past week, and it was entitled "Right Sizing." We talk about downsizing. This is an article written by a gal, Donna Schaefer. She's a United Church minister in the States, and she said, you know, it's time that we right-sized. And what she means about that is that sometimes we're very hard on ourselves, and we set goals way beyond what we are capable of doing. And we need to right-size those goals. So what she's saying, in effect, is we can't all be Nelson Mandela's and Martin Luther King Jr.'s and Mother Teresa's. We can't, there's only a few of those in the world, but we can do something. So right-size our lives so that we will always have hope. I think we overshoot ourselves. We get feeling down about ourselves because we're not doing what we think we should do because, well, we don't have the courage or whatever. Well, don't set such high goals. There's many, many things that our church can do that don't come up to the measure of Nelson Mandela's and Mother Teresa's, but there's work that needs to be done. And it has to do with service. It has to do with metaphorically washing each other's feet. It has to do with metaphorically going through a death in our lives to come to new life. So do that this week. Thanks be to God.